Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome back to our garden in Spokane, Washington, where the hardiness zone ranges from 5B to 6A. It's time for my second video on growing beans. Now initially I thought that I would need 2 weeks in between the first video and today, but look what happened. I've got awesome bean plants. In part 1, I discussed seed viability, seed orientation for planting them in seed starting containers. I planted the seeds and discussed the supports we grow them on. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the seedling timeline, bed prep, how I remove each seedling from their seed starting containers, and plant them in the bed. Then I'm going to talk about bean care and what to do with your amazing harvests. Boy, these seedlings really hit the ground running. On May 1st, I planted the seeds in a deep root insert, which came from Lee Valley Tools, if you're interested. On May 5th, just 4 days later, the majority of the seeds had germinated. On May 6th, they started getting their true leaves, so I decided I had better start the hardening off process ASAP. So hardening off means gradually acclimating seedlings to the intensity of outdoor sunlight, because indoor lighting is nowhere near as intense as sunshine is. And the basic concept for hardening off is that you put your seedlings outdoors for an hour in a shady area, and then you move them back indoors. On the next day, you move them outside for 2 hours, and then move them back indoors. And gradually, over the course of about a week's time, you increase that amount of time they're outdoors by 1 hour. And you're also steadily increasing the amount of sunlight that they're in. So these seedlings are ready to go. So today is May 11th, and it's time to transplant them out into the garden. And I need to do this as soon as possible because you can see they're just starting to send out a vine. And if I waited until they all got tangled together, it would be a horrible mess. And I would risk damaging some of the seedlings. Now, in preparation for planting them, the first thing I did is I pre-moistened the soil so it would hold together nicely while I'm planting the seedlings. And so I just put some water in the seed starting tray and set them in there for about an hour, and these guys are ready to go. I also pre-moistened the soil in the planting bed because I wanted to eliminate any chance for the seedlings to get shocked upon being planted. So for planting the seedlings today, I've got 2 tools. The first is extremely high tech. This is a slot screwdriver. And I use it to go gently into the outer edge of each cell and use that to lift it out. You never want to grab a seedling by the stem and yank it out that way, because that will damage the stem, possibly kill the seedling. And you just went to all the trouble and expense to plant your seeds. You don't want to do that. The other thing is a dibber, sometimes called a dibble. And I use this to make the planting hole. You'll notice how it's kind of the same shape and diameter as these individual cells that the seedlings are growing in. Now, I got this one in particular from Lee Valley Tools, and I forgot to look and see if they still carry it, because I've had this for, at least 20-25 years. Holds up great. But I also did find one on Amazon and put it in my Amazon store if you're curious. It's pretty inexpensive and it serves the same purpose. So I'll put a link to my store in the description that goes with this video on my YouTube channel. I'm always asked about things I'm using, so I figured I should do that. Now, what about the spacing for pole beans versus bush beans? Well, because pole beans basically just grow up, they're not a wide plant, I can space the seeds or seedlings about 3 inches apart, and that works great. Bush bean plants are going to grow out. So that means you need to plant either the seeds or seedlings about 6 to 8 inches apart. Now in last week's video, I showed you the arbor that we love to grow pole beans on. This works so great, and it does have that cool factor in the garden. But I wanted to share a very interesting tip with you. Vining plants tend to want to grow toward the south. And so what I will do as I'm planting the seedlings is I'll plant them on the north side of this support and the north side of this support, because north is that way. And then what will happen is the seedlings will grow directly toward the support, which is perfect. Okay, it's time to plant. And here's what a seedling looks like. That's quite the root system. When I pick up the seedlings, I'm careful not to just pick them up by their stem, because again, I don't want to risk any injury. But because they're long and lanky, you do have to hold them from both parts. You want to press the soil carefully around the stem so that they stay upright. Now I want to give them a nice watering because it's a relatively warm day. And I also want to make sure there's no air gaps around the roots. Okay, all of the seedlings have been planted. Now what happens? Well, pretty much you just watch them grow. And you keep an eye on how the plants are looking. Make sure they don't look wilty, like they're not getting enough water. And of course here, we have pretty hot summers, and so when it gets hotter, I will be increasing the amount of water the plants get. Generally what happens is we water early morning and then late afternoon. So that's the main thing to watch. Now pretty soon you're going to see some flowers, and that's where the bean pods are going to develop from. If you're new to growing beans, you might be wondering when to pick them. The length of mature beans will probably be listed on your seed packet, so you know what to expect. I want tender beans, but as long as possible, since that means a bigger harvest. You might need to experiment with the picking time. Vortex beans are quite long, so you really get your money's worth. Monte Gusto yellow beans are shorter, but they're a really nice variety. Remember that the more you pick, the more the plants will produce, so be sure to pick the beans regularly. I think beans are so versatile in the kitchen. You can steam them and serve them as a side dish with a meal. You can add them to soups, stews, or casseroles. Or you could make bean salad. But I also like to think ahead to fall and winter meals, and so I do a lot of freezing of the beans. And that involves a procedure known as blanching. What you do is boil them for 3 minutes, and then you drain the container and put the beans into a sink of cold water to cool them down. Then you're going to dry them and put them into freezer bags. We still have a few bags left in our freezer right now, and they will definitely be gone well before this year's harvest takes place. Okay, that's everything for now. I'll definitely give you updates throughout the season. And I do plan to combine part 1 and part 2 of this video so that you have everything in one place. And I will do that as soon as I have the chance. If you have questions, don't be bashful. You can either put them in the comments that go below this video on my YouTube channel, or you can send me an email. My email address is right at the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I hope you're going to grow lots of beans this year. Happy gardening!